You tell me when you're ready. Okay. Good evening. Today is Monday, August 9th, 2021. Welcome to this evening's regular meeting of the Oregon City Council. Let's begin tonight's meeting by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call of council for attendance this evening?
Mr. Davish?
Here.
Mr. Horniak?
Here.
Mrs. Pavlov?
Here.
Mr. Reeves?
Here.
Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Mr. Wallensack?
Here.
Mr. Zale?
Please note that 6 members of council are present. Mr. Zale did contact me. He is out of town today and could not make the meeting. So I would seek a motion to excuse Mr. Zale's absence from the meeting. Moved by Mr. Horniak, seconded by Mr. Reeves. Council, any objections? Here are no objections. Mr. Zale is excused from tonight's meeting. Also joining us are Clerk of Council, Ms. Tina Evans, Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator, Mr. Michael Beasley, Law Director, Melissa Papora, Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman, our Finance Director, Ms. Darlene Huntermark, Angie Clark, our Accounts Payable Supervisor, our Police Chief, Mr. Brandon Began, Fire Chief, Mr. Denny Hartman, and our Assistant Fire Chief, Mr. Mark Mullins. Council, our first order of business would be the approval of the meeting minutes from the June 28, 2021 regular meeting of council.
Mr. President?
Mr. Seaman.
Yes, I move for passage as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reeves. Council, is there any objections? Here are no objections. The meeting minutes from the June 28, 2021 regular meeting of council are approved as submitted. Council, did not have a committee of the whole meeting last week. Therefore, we need to add items 89 through 98 of 2021 to this evening's agenda. And item number 98 will be the one that was placed before you. It was inadvertently skipped. It is an assessment for a nuisance violation that is in normal procedures. And it just got accidentally skipped when it was entered into the meeting agenda. So item number 98 would be the one that was presented before us. So can I get a motion to add 89 through 98 of 2021 to this evening's agenda? Mr. Seaman.
Yeah, I make a motion to add items 89 through 98 to this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reeves. Council, is there any objections? Hearing no objections, items number 89 through 98 of 2021 will be added to this evening's agenda. And we're going to proceed with the items on the agenda, and we'll circle back for the persons and delegations at the end of the meeting.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mayor.
before you get started with that, I do have a proclamation here I'd like to present, if you would.
Please do.
Kind of let me do that. And it's to honor one of our individuals who happens to be an employee of the city of Oregon, Kevin Schmenk. He's in the audience right there. And it is designating August 18th, 2021 as Kevin Schmenk Day. Being the mayor of the city of Oregon, I have the privilege to recognize people that have made outstanding accomplishments in our community. And Kevin, with the Erie Shores Council Boy Scouts of America, we're proud to announce that Kevin had been awarded the Glenda M. Bowman Lifetime Inspirational Leadership Award. The Lake Erie Shores Council Lifetime Award commemorates outstanding lifetime service, which has significantly nurtured life and growth in the community. And Kevin is a recipient of that. And therefore, I, Michael J. Safarian, as the mayor of the city of Oregon, do here proclaim August 18th, 2021 to be Kevin Schmenk's Day. And Kevin, I hand this to you if you want to come get it. I've known Kevin a long time. Congratulations. been an active member as a Boy Scout. It's about, that's what, how long has it been?
57 years.
Is that all? 57 years? You're only 45 years old, aren't you?
I started young.
Yeah.
Thank you
Well,
very much.
Congratulations. With that, Mayor, we will move to item number 89 of 2021. Item number 89 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Severian, Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman, and Fire Chief, Mr. Dennis Hartman. Mayor?
I'll start and we can go to Chief Hartman. Of course, you know, we're building a new fire station and the architectural firm, the Viewer Group, was the one who did the architectural work. Now we're going further to start the building of it, and we need this for the day-to-day operations of building this fire station. And Chief Hartman can tell you or answer what's that? Oh,
Mr. Roman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor. And this ordinance is really an amendment to our services. And really, well, the description and the cost breakdown are attached to today. It's really two parts. Architects are a little different than engineers. They base the fees. It's always a percent of the construction cost. For an engineer, it's hard to understand because, you know, the economy can change the bid price and it's hard to see that change. But in terms of design, they have based their costs on 5.1 million, cost being close to 6 million. And they had a 9% of construction cost was their architectural fees. But when we looked through it, there's no doubt that the footprint of the building did increase by 27%. It had like 12 alternate bid items that were added to the bid. So there definitely was additional design work. So part of this amendment is there's $31,980 for additional design services. But the other work is really construction administration, and that's inspection, shop drawings, meetings. And then we always have actual drawings to document what actually was built. So so there's really two parts to that, and that's just an amendment. So happy to answer the question.
Mr. Roman, will they be acting as our construction manager for the
Yes.
city of Oregon?
Yes, and they'll have a bill read, it works for them.
Thank you. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 89 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I will sign item number 89 with ordinance number 89 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans?
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and fire chief to sign amendment number 1 with Bureau Group Architecture and Engineering Incorporated, 314 Conant Street, Maumee, Ohio, to provide professional architectural and engineering services for Phase 1 and Phase 2 construction, inspection, and administration for the Oregon Central Fire Station 2021 in an amount not to exceed $141,980 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council?
Mr. President.
Yes, Ms. Poliff?
I move for passage of ordinance number 89 of 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Poliff.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 89 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mrs. Polliff?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 89 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. And Chief Hartman, I should have asked you this before we voted. When do we expect groundbreaking, dirt being moved out there? Can you give us any idea?
We have a pre-construction meeting Wednesday, and we should get all those details, I would believe it.
Okay, thank you. Move to the next item on our agenda. Item number 90 of 2021. Item number 90 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Severian and Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman. And we're going to go directly to Mr. Roman.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is needed to certify right away for the bar employee road safety improvement project. And the city is close to final settlements with the owners that are involved. In particular, this is at the southeast corner with Third Base drive-through and Premier Bay, which is next door to them. We are close to that final settlement. We do need final approvals through ODOT. But part of those approvals, we do need to certify right away. And one way of doing that is getting what's called a right of entry. We did something very similar for Tim Hortons, allows you to bid the project, actually you can start construction. I can tell you this settlement is a lot further than we were with Tim Hortons when we did the bar and wheeling. But we still need to certify the right of way by mid-September, so we do need to do this. With this settlement, and just so you know, we are obtaining almost a quarter of an acre of land from third base right through. That's really for a right turn lane, dedicated right turn lane there. And he's definitely losing some parking spaces, but what Hassan is the owner, and probably his biggest concern is not losing his drive accesses. He has two of them out to Coy. Made it very clear to us. And the bank also has an access out to Coy, just south of third base. So, but what's interesting with this is the owner of third base also owns a lot south of the bank property, same size as the bank's property. And if we can get the two to swap properties, we can actually move the bank drive further south, and then third base would retain their two drives. So we could actually, so we have a map that shows that in Exhibit A. It's a very out of the box, unique barter exchange here. You can actually, the bank may not get much out of this, but we did explain to them that moving the drives further from Navarre is a lot safer. It's a lot congested to get traffic in and out of those drives. So it is in their best interest. It's in the public's best interest to do this, and they're on board with it. But we do need final ODOT approval to do that. So this is really just the right of entry, allows us to certify the right of entry. Hopefully, within 2 months or so, we'll bring in the actual settlement. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Roman.
Yep.
Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 90 of 2021? Yes, Mr. Reeves.
Mr. Roman, they will still keep their exit at third base and the bank heading out to Navarre?
Yeah, if you look at that, the current two drives that third base has is one is like the exit for the parking lot. The other one is the drive through the actual drive-through. So the northern will actually get removed for the project. So his current drive-through drive will become the drive to the parking lot. I don't know if you can show that up there.
So you're talking the one with the X here?
Yes, that one there, he's losing that, but the drive to the bank will now be the drive through his drive-through, and the bank will get a new drive on the property south of that. There's another map, Terry, if you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shows the final layout of the drives.
Eventually, Mr. Roman, will that be a right turn only out of that?
Yeah, it'll be what for the actual project, and what he loses is at the north west corner of his property. Yes, that'll be a dedicated right turn.
Coming out of third base and the bank as well, will there be the median like we have down by Tim Hortons?
On Navarre, you will, yes. You'll
On
have
Navarre.
medians on Navarre, about 500 foot in each direction.
Thank you, that's,
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Council, is there any further questions for the administration on item number 90 of 2021?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
then does third base, they get monetary compensation for the property that we take?
They will. And that's the settlement. We need approval from ODOT to make that settlement complete. Yes.
Does that come from local funds or ODOT funds?
Well, part of getting the approval from ODOT, if we get ODOT's approval, it'll actually come from federal funds. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Council, is there any further questions on item number 90 of 2021? Here are no further questions. I will sign item number 90 with ordinance number 90 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into agreements with Danya LLC and Premier Bank, FKA, First Federal Bank of the Midwest for right of entry for the LUC SR 2-22.51 Navarre Avenue and Coy Road safety improvements, PID 109596, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance number 90 of 2021 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Second by Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 90 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavlov?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman? Mr. Walensee?
Yes. Thank council, please note that ordinance 90 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move to item number 91. These are a number of items that are being presented. 91 through 96 are being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Finance Director Ms. Darlene Huntermark. We'll start with item number 91. Mayor, Ms. Huntermark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And what I'd like to do is go touch on each of these next six items. They are all very routine items. Mr. Beasley does have something to say after I do that for item number 91, which is street lighting, the new part of Eagles Landing. It's a requirement that we require subdivisions all to be lit. It was petitioned by the property owner, so that's 100%, and we're just filling out the request for that. You know, when we do the cutting of noxious weeds, we levy the assessment so we can charge those people whose weeds we cut. Do it annually. It's pretty much falls in the different. Some years we have a little less, some years a little more. But if we go back in history, you'll find times where we were cutting hundreds of parcels, and that number was very big. So we've accomplished the task of getting out of the weed cutting business, where people were taking care of their own. The next one is the maintenance for sanitary sewer, which is an annual thing, as well as this levying the assessment for the cost of street lights throughout the city. Then the different subdivisions that have pumping stations for their storm sewer.
Detention.
Yeah, it's just a storm sewer. The maintenance and upkeep for them is annually levied. And lastly, the unpaid water and sewer. When you see that number, $1,600, it's really kind of amazing for millions of dollars of billing that goes on every year. And we've got a delinquent $1,600. It's really a testament to our water billing department collecting the bills. So all these things are very routine
Excuse me,
things.
Mayor. You know, we're going to include item number 98 also. That is
Oh, yeah, the
Hayden Road.
and once again, yes, when we do have nuisance abatement for cleaning up different things, we do also have to find a way to charge those by their tax duplicate. So once again, that if you allow me, 90, we got everything but 97 in here.
Yep.
So, and Mr. Beasley does have something to say about the street lighting for item number 91.
Yeah, Mr. President,
Yes, Mr.
members,
Beasley.
just as a note on the street lighting, Tim Zale couldn't be here tonight. He's had a long scheduled travel event, and he asked me to bring up something I also discussed with the council president. Oregon is blessed with having some good night skies in some areas and not so much in others. We're looking to see if we can take steps in our future street lighting programs to find a way to make sure the street lights direct down so we create more of an opportunity for night sky viewing. I know we have some amateur astronomers out there that we've had some conversations with. In fact, there's a significant meteor shower this week on Wednesday night. I think it peaks, and that's kind of a fun one if you get a chance to get out and look up. So we're going to have some conversations with First Energy and our partners on that, see if there's some ways that we can do it. We don't think it would be any different cost, just be a little different style perhaps to achieve that. I don't know if you had something you wanted to add to that.
No, I was just going to make sure to remind you that Mr. Zale asked to have that discussed, and is it dark sky lighting?
Sure.
What they call.
Yeah. And the other one is we'll look at our town center to see if we can do something fun with that too. Make sure on our town green or something so we can do some stargazing or meteor shower night perhaps out in the town green. It'd be
And
kind
I
of
was
fun.
going to ask if we're going to do this, I would like us to be the driving force and do what we're going to ask other people to do and
Sure.
initiate that in our town center.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Huntermark, do you have anything to add, or are we okay? Yes. Thank you so much. Councilors, any questions for the administration on item number 91? Here are no questions. I'll sign item number 91 with ordinance number 91 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the Toledo Edison Company to install 3 50-watt LED Acorn post-top style lights on 20-foot fiberglass poles with underground supply located in Eagles Landing Plat 12, providing for the assessments to benefited property owners and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
I'd like to move for passage of ordinance 91, 2021. As an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
There's no emergency.
Second by
Oh, there is. Never mind.
Mr. Horniak. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 91 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
yes,
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 21 or 91 of 2021 was passed by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 92, council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 92 of 2021? Here are no questions. We'll sign item number 92 with ordinance number 92 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Levying special assessments for the cutting of noxious weeds in the city of Oregon, Ohio for the year 2020 in the amount of $5,166.46.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
I'd like to move for passage of ordinance number 92 of 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 92 of 2021?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
yes,
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 92 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 93. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 93? Here are no questions. I will sign item number 93 with ordinance number 93 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Levying special assessments for the property owner's share of the cost of maintaining the sanitary sewer lines in the city of Oregon, Ohio for the year 2020 in the amount of $195,921.89.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
I'd like to move for passage of ordinance number 93 of 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 93 of 2021?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
yes,
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 93 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 94. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 94 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item number 94 with ordinance number 94 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Levying special assessments for the property owner's share of the cost of lighting the streets and public ways in the city of Oregon, Ohio for the year 2020 in the amount of $309,557.08.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
I'd like to move for passage of ordinance number 94 of 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 94 of 2021?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
yes,
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 94, 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 95. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 95 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item number 95 with ordinance number 95 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Levying special assessments for the property owner's share of the cost of maintaining the drainage facilities in Heritage Estates, Park Place, Hickory Shores, Cardinal Estates, The Vineyard, The Drake, Foxgate, Bay Meadows, Park Alonde, Haley Hollow 1, Haley Hollow 2 subdivisions for the year 2020 for a total amount of $22,760.82.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
I'd like to move for passage of ordinance number 95 of 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 95 of 2021?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
yes,
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that item number 95 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. Move to item number 96. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 96 of 2021? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item number 96 with ordinance number 96 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Levying special assessments for the cost of unpaid water and sewer accounts in the city of Oregon, Ohio for the year 2020 in the amount of $1,680.31.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Seaman.
I'd like to move for passage of ordinance 96 of 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call council on passage of ordinance number 96 of 2021?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
yes,
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenbeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 96 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. We will move to item number 98 of 2021. Councils, are any questions for the administration on item number 98 of 2021?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Reeves.
I just, the property that's in this, ordinance on Hayden Street, is that property abandoned? And, what is the time frame from the time that we get a complaint to the city, until the city goes and takes care and cleans and, charges the property owner, or it goes with the property?
Mr. President.
Mayor?
Start and then Mr. Beasley can follow up, is we have a process we have to go through that does take time on the first cleanup. After that, it's a lot quicker, but there's a notification process. And I'm gonna guess, is that, what's about 30 days by the time we can get actually, and by the time we notify them and actually get on there and do the work, it's usually around 30 days.
I would agree. There is a time frame specified that gives them a time to try to change, and then we have to follow up on it. But generally, in that time frame, yes.
Because we have so much time to notify them, and they have the opportunity to clean it up, and we have to go through physically getting in touch with them. And then when we levy to put it on their tax duplicate, we're not in a hurry to do that, because that just comes up in the scheduling of when we, just like tonight, we got things going on. So,
Mr. Mayor,
yeah,
is this basically the same thing that happened to the, where we knocked down that house on Brown Road? Basically, where it takes you have to go through that long, drawn-out process, isn't it?
we've sped that up, and now, once somebody has been notified once, and if we have a reoccurrence, we do not have to go through the same criteria, because they already mentioned we can react on the prior action, which I think then we got, like, within 10 days, we can probably be in action.
Is this property abandoned or no?
I don't think it is. I don't know that for sure. Paul, or Keith,
don't
were
think it
you
is.
there?
I don't think it.
Right.
Mayor,
Just a-
is this the same procedure that goes through if somebody has weeds or tall
Similar.
grass?
Very
Similar
similar, very
process
similar.
that we, on all nuisance properties. Mr.
Yeah.
Beasley?
Just to note, the only exception we have to that timeline is if something's in danger, perhaps of falling on somebody, or we are allowed to do summary abatement only when it's a severe or significant risk of harm to adjacent properties or individuals walking past. So we can go in without waiting for a court order, but we have to follow, essentially, it's our laws patterned after state law and court cases that dictate that we just can't go onto your property and clean it up just because we'd like to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman?
Mayor, Mr. Beasley, did this have to go through a court process?
No,
No, just through the zoning department.
No,
through notification process, just a set of rules that we have to
Similar
abide
to
by.
noxious weed
Sure.
ordinance.
Very similar.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Council, is there any further questions for the administration on item number 98? Hearing no further questions, I'll sign item number 98 with ordinance number 98 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Levying a special assessment for the abatement of a public nuisance located at 2716 Hayden Street in the city of Oregon, Ohio, in the amount of $3,300.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move For passage of ordinance number 90 of 2021. Is it a regular or is it?
There's no emergency.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 98 of 2021?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensek?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 98 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. Move to item number 97. Item number 97 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Law Director Melissa Purpura. We're going to go directly to Ms. Purpura.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an ordinance to accept the One Ohio Opioid Settlement and enter into a participation agreement with the opioid distributors AmerisourceBergen, McKesson, and Cardinal Health. These three distributors, the state of Ohio through the Attorney General's office, they filed suit against them as a result of the distribution of medication that led to the national opioid crisis, which also led to large addictions and overdose deaths that affect many families in the city of Oregon and also the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio and the political subdivisions now have an opportunity to enter into this settlement agreement in which these three distributors over the next 18 years would provide a settlement amount in Oregon, approximately $132,000, to be used for abatement of the crisis, which would be for funding programs, preventative treatments, public awareness in the criminal justice system. It also forces the three distributors to also take steps to improve their oversight, to make sure they're using the most up-to-date ways of distributing this type of drug. The agreement deadline is August 13th for the political subdivisions. This only allows government entities to enter into this agreement. And also, it only deals with these three distributors. So it is possible that the city in the future could be involved in other litigation, but this settlement is only with these three distributors. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Purpura. Council.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
You know, I have a concern. I mean, I like the idea that these three distributors have to do something, have to make up for their wrongdoing. That's appropriate, but how do you put a price on someone, an overdose victim? How do you put a price on someone that loses their job and they alienates themselves from their family? The psychological and social difficulties that, you know, the distribution of these drugs have produced is unimaginable. And I do agree with the concept of them compensating, but I don't think the compensation is adequate and that they should do more than pay money. So I probably will not be voting for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Mr. Beasley.
Mr. President, in general, we agree. The challenge for a city is that the cost of litigation such as this, it makes the only way to practically participate is through the Attorney General's program. The good news, I think there may be some other defendants in the future. This is a portion of it. But by no measure, when you look at the true costs of this challenge for the families and individuals in our community, it doesn't come close to making up for the experience. We agree with that. There isn't a practical way for cities like ours or cities our size to go out and engage in that level of litigation and discovery and back and forth that it takes. So the practical way for us to do it is through the Attorney General's program, and we're glad that there was something there, though there's no question that it doesn't begin to cover the true costs to the community. There will be other defendants, we believe as well, that could come back to the benefit of Oregon to help defray the true costs and experience out there. So we agree on that. We just don't see another more practical way to achieve what is. We agree with your objective on it. Just want to let you know.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Horniak.
Ms. Purpura, I have a question if I may. And I don't know that you'll have an answer, so my apologies for not prefacing this.
looking at the range of percentages and amounts that are listed in here and looking at Oregon as a city for Lucas County at a 0.0937, just looking through the range and the variance of amounts, much of them are much significantly lower. There are some that are higher. Is there a reason? Is there a risk level or an affected rate? I mean, is there any reason to have those percentages come about?
There is a formula that the Attorney General's office has created, which deals with population. A lot of it is based on population. They've also looked at, in addition to population, where you have police and fire response. Some municipalities don't have their own fire. For example, like Sylvania, they contract out through another township. So there's a formula, and I can get you the information to the specifics, but I know population and some of those other things as far as police and fire have a part of the formulation of that. But I can get you the specifics on
Okay.
that.
I guess my question just went more to the fact of, since the city of Oregon had a little higher escalated rate of, I'll say, receipts from this program, my concern was, do we have an over average
Overdoses.
affected rate, or I guess, is it more rampant in the city of Oregon and that's, we're compensated according to that, or is it other factors to that? That's my curiosity. Is there a bigger problem here than maybe what we think?
Mr.
Mr.
President,
Beasley.
there's plenty of large problem here. But ultimately, the formula we believe is based more on, and I don't know the exact details of it, but I did at one point. Do we have the cities that have a court system, the cities that have a fire department, the cities that have a police department, those functions of it, numbers of runs, et cetera. So that's primarily the system that was used, but it could have also factored in maybe reported overdoses and things like that. But it was based on that approach to try and capture, and there's no formula that's fair. Anything from the local government fund on down, they're all done, but some amount of arbitrariness, but there was at least a method to it that seemed rational at the time.
Mr. President?
Mr. Seaman.
Yeah, I know one of the criticisms of this finding was that it did almost solely based on population. And, some of the questions that you bring up that were just for address. What's the incidence in a particular area? That should be part of it, but mostly it went by population, which was a down and dirty and easy way for it to determine how much money should be allocated. It makes sense to a certain degree of population.
But so there may be a component of a community's exposure rate and incident rate to this, but it's not the primary contributing factor.
That would be
Fair to
correct.
say?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Pauloff.
For clarification, and I agree with some of the points that Mr. Seaman made. However, are we looking at this as a beginning? I mean, this is a start where there's responsibility going to for where the opioid crisis has really begun, or is that what we're looking at here? Holding people accountable, especially these entities that are the distributors?
I would agree with that, Ms. Paula. Prior to this, we looked at the individuals that overdosed. And then it moved to the people that are supplying the individuals that have overdosed. And now it's going to the actual distributors. And so I would agree with you that the state of Ohio, I think, has taken the lead to say, we're now looking at these distributors and we're going to hold you accountable. So we've tried to address every single facet because it is so encompassing and it affects so many people's lives and society as a whole. But yes, I would think that this would be the beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Councilors, any further questions for the administration on item number 97 of 2021? Hearing no further questions, I'll sign item number 97 with ordinance number 97 of 2021. And ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
An ordinance authorizing recommendation to accept the One Ohio opioid settlement and enter into the participation agreement with opioid distributors AmerisourceBergen, McKesson, and Cardinal Health, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Pauloff.
I move for passage of ordinance number 97 of 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
second by Mr. Dabish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 97 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mrs. Polliff,
Yes.
Mr. Dabish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
No.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 97 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 5 yeas and 1 nay. That concludes the items for consideration and passage this evening, and we will move to the mayor's report. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a couple items here. The first one is from the engineering department, and there's a request to give a raise to Mr. Brandon Portillo from seasonal pay scale classification 5, step 311.70 an hour to classification 6, step 2, 12.30 an hour in the second year, and that has council's concurrence in the promotion in pay scale active August 10th, 2021 to Brandon Portillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dabish?
I'd like to concur with the mayor for the pay scale for Mr. Brandon Portillo.
Thank you, Mr. Dabish.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Council, any objections? Here are no objections. Mayor, council concurs with the request for Brandon Portillo to increase his classification and pay.
Right, and next, we have correspondence from Paul Drake III, commonly known PRD3, is announcing his retirement as effective September 30th, 2021. Asks council's concurrence in accepting Paul's wishes to retire.
Thank you, Mayor. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dabish?
I'd like to concur with the mayor for Paul Drake III's retirement for 30+ years.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Dabish. Second by Mr. Seaman. Council, any objections? Here are no objections. Mayor, council concurs with the acceptance of the retirement of Mr. Paul Drake III.
Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Beasley?
Mr. President, members, just a note, we have, based on the discussion at the meeting on the fire station this week, we'll see if we can schedule a groundbreaking for folks to go over for that, perhaps the following week, and we'll take a look at that. We can do it. If not, we can do it when it's time to start digging. They'll be delivering materials there first, et cetera, but we'll figure out a time to do something over there. In addition, we did have a good, I know, I want to thank those folks from the community and the city who helped with another successful food truck event. I know Mr. Seaman and Council Clerk Tina was out, and it was a good event. So thanks for all those who helped. I ate some good food from there. Also note, we continue to have good, strong conversations on our town center development, and our roadway is, Paul, let me ask about, what's the timeline on the road? I drove past next week, delivering materials as well. Yeah, I drove past today and there wasn't quite anything there yet. But, all right, thanks. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Ms. Purpura?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Purpura. Mr. Roman?
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Reeves?
No report, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Seaman?
Just as Mr. Beasley said, I'd like to thank everybody that worked so hard on this. It turned out pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Mr. Davish?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Polliff?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Polliff. Mr. Horniak?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. I have no report from my standing committee, but something's floating out there, Mr. Beasley, and I want to make sure that I have accurate information. It was floated out there that we have exercised options on properties. Is there something that we don't know as a city council? Did we float any options or execute any option agreements? And have we spent any money out at the property that we've been discussing for the last couple months?
Mr. President and members, neither the city nor the foundation has completed any options for any properties in the eastern part of the city, nor have we completed any agreements, and nor have we spent any dollars on any options in those communities.
Thank you.
That's what
I wanted to make sure because
Yeah,
it was
sure.
out there
There
that
hasn't
we
been.
had and I
And
hadn't been
we
made
have-
aware of it, so thank you.
I'm not aware of any further discussions over the last, couple of months or so with any property owners in that area.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Seaman.
along those same lines, thanks for bringing that up, Mr. President. But, so no money has been spent, but has there been any paperwork distributed to any of those property owners in regard to the possibility of the option fulfillment?
Mr. Beasley?
Mr. President, the mayor personally met with the property owners and floated documents to them about it. There's no agreements have been completed and no funds have been spent, and nobody's moved forward.
So they have paperwork in that regard?
Sure.
That's what I want to know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. I have no report in my standing committee, and we'll move to the persons and delegations portion of the meeting. The first person that is signed up is Mr. Phil Cervantes. Mr. Cervantes, if you'd like to step forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
For the record, my name is Philip Cervantes. I reside at 1440 South Stadium Road. I'd like to take a few minutes to ask City Council a few questions. First, I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Beasley, Your Honor, the Mayor, and ladies and gentlemen of the council, and all sorts of guests. What I'm here for is I'm wondering if anyone would take a few seconds, or a few minutes, I should say, just to drive down South Stadium Road. South Stadium Road starts at Navarre Avenue and dead ends into Brown Road. As soon as you come to the residential area of South Stadium Road, you'll see beautifully manicured lawns, houses well kept, beautiful landscaping in these houses. My God, the Ackerman boys alone have thousands of dollars in landscaping in their house. And we have to be careful because people exercise on that road. They walk all the way to Navarre Road, all the way down. You'll see them in the morning, you'll see them in the afternoon, and you'll see them in the evening walking on South Stadium Road. And my wife is one of these people. She walks all the way clear, like almost at the end of South Stadium Road. On the way back, you should be carrying a bag, picking up beer bottles, pop cans, wrappers, and everything else, just to keep that road looking nice. Not to say anything about Don Petro and his wife. They do the same. And the poor widow lady that is on the bend, Jackie, I'm sorry, I don't know her last name, who walks all the way to Navarre Avenue and back with her dog, picking up papers. That's what we do on South Stadium Road. Now, when you turn down South Stadium Road, there's something I want you to observe in between Pickle and Brown. I want you to look at the ditch. Please, look at that ditch. Plugged solid with weeds. Plugged solid. It does not flow at all. And the further you go down to where my house is, where the woods are, the weeds are 3 feet high, no, I'm sorry, 2 foot higher than the crest of the road. That's a 3-foot ditch. How long have those weeds been growing to get that high? Soon, do they want not to look at the houses on South Stadium Road on the west side? Is that what you're trying to do? I see that you're allocating $5,166 in assessments for people who don't cut the weeds. And we're just as guilty, just as guilty. I called and I asked, will you cut the weeds? The machine is broke. I could recommend a good mechanic that can fix that machine. I'm sure he can. But bear with me. I did ask if they would clean the tile. This is what's happening. Our property drains into that ditch. And my tiles are under mud because they have neglected to dig that ditch out. It is completely plugged. The water is stagnated. Mosquitoes are breeding. You can't hardly walk down there. So I ask, please, just drive down that and see if you approve of that. And if you do approve of it, and then we're going to have to learn to live with it. But if you don't approve it, please talk to people who are in charge. That where are they? Where are our inspectors? Do they ever go down and take a look at that? I mean, this is horrendous. The ditch is just plugged solid.
Mr. Cervantes, right here. I know that we have a program, and I'm going to ask Mr. Roman, that we dip the ditches. And I know about 10 years ago it got dipped, and it's probably
Yes,
been about that long since we've re-dipped the ditch and made sure the flow was clean.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if we have,
I thought and Keith, not to ask you, but put you on the spot. I think we dipped it 3 years ago. Is that correct?
I think it's longer than that. I'm not sure. It may have been.
Yeah, yeah, and again, leaves blowing, and I mean, and not to say that one area of the city is more important than another, but it is a balance act, I can tell you that. And when it comes to drainage, you do try to go to the downstream end
work your way back.
and then work your way upstream. Unfortunately, on Stadium, which, is where Mr. Cervantes lives, is the very upstream end. It's on top. We're flat as a pancake. But if you were to exaggerate grade, it'd be on top of the mountain. It's hard to say top of the mountain should be the priority before the valley, is all I'm saying. But it doesn't mean we're not going to try to get to dip it, okay? And we did replace the storm sewer that crosses Pickle when we did the drainage project on Pickle. So I know it's enlarged there, and we did cleaning in that area. But we'll go drive it, and it doesn't mean we won't, it doesn't mean we're not going to ignore the higher end of the drainage system. But I'm just saying it's a balance act. I mean, there's a lot of areas that don't drain that we are still working on.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr. Roman.
You're correct, sir.
Yeah.
And I'm at the very beginning of that ditch.
You're at the upstream end, which is the highest point.
Yes, sir. And like I said before, you were kind enough to come out and try to clean out at least my tile, which is now covered up again. But the point being, those weeds are so high, they didn't grow overnight.
And I get it. In weeds, we can definitely look at cutting, but sediment, which comes from the land, again, it comes down to, drainage, unfortunately. And I know there's people here that put in buffers that slow that drainage down, that collect the sediment. Unfortunately, some of the land, which is more residential, they may not collect that. And that's the problem with that ditch. It does build up with sediment real quick. That's
But cutting those weeds are going to fill that ditch up with itself.
Well, sediment's the worst.
Yes, but the weeds are growing right on
Understood.
top, are going to add to the.
Mr.
I'm just saying,
Cervantes.
we do wetland project where people say, when are you gonna cut those weeds? We say never, because
Yes,
what
sir.
happens is they're plants that absorb the nutrients, and when you get the water, they literally fold over.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cervantes,
Yes, sir.
right here. We'll ask the street department to take a look at it, and if we can cut those weeds, we'll cut those weeds for you.
Would you be so kind as to
Yeah.
drive down there and take a look?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mr. Cervantes? Mr. Cervantes, I actually noticed him. I rode my bicycle past your house recently.
Stop in.
I'll stop in and ask you. We'll take a look at it and see where it is.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Your
Cervantes.
Honor.
Just for the record, South Stadium starts at Seaman.
Technically.
Does it really? I thought it started in Navarre.
No, Siemens.
Well, you can start in Navarre. You don't have to go as far as South Street. Thank you, sir.
You don't
Thank you.
care about that other side.
No, I don't.
They don't have the same ditch.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Your
Mr.
Honor.
Cervantes.
you.
Next
Thank
is
you,
Ms.
Mr. Cervantes.
Ackerman. Beth, would you please step forward, state your
Can-
name?
Can I ask a question before
Yes.
Ms. Ackerman steps up?
Yes.
Okay, so for the layman, what exactly is dipping?
Clean the ditch.
It's dredging.
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 Okay,
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
actually taking
use
a
it.
bucket and you're scooping out the bottom.
all right, thank
And
you.
we have actually a tool to go in there and drag
Mhm.
there too.
I just never heard that terminology, so.
So, Mr. President,
Yes, Mr.
I
Seaman.
mean, besides just cutting the weeds, and the roots of those weeds will come out when you dip it then, right?
Well, yeah, but
A lot of stuff.
You
goes
want
out.
the-
And a lot of it is movement of that sediment. You still have to haul it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, because of the work, we're not there. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we're doing this in a lot of places. I mean,
Sure.
remember, Oregon is the size of a township, which people don't realize.
big.
It's a lot bigger than you think. And again, when you do drainage, you just out at the downstream end, you work your way up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mr. Cervantes is at the upstream end of his system.
Yeah.
That's all.
But it works better for him if you work it at the downstream.
Well, it takes longer to get there is the
But
point.
yeah,
'cause you're
but still,
starting
you gotta
somewhere
do it
downstream.
that way, yeah.
Correct.
Be effective.
Or if you clean out the upstream, it doesn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah,
with it.
Right, it's,
right, that's
that's
what I'm
correct.
saying,
It's gonna go to another bottleneck. That's why you don't start at the upstream.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Ms. Ackerman. Your,
was thinking
your
about
name and address?
Dipping being the little bit
Yeah.
of tobacco you stick
Yes.
in your mouth, right?
Ouch.
Yeah, gross. Good evening. Well, thank you for asking that, because obviously that was gonna be on my questions list, and thank you for getting back to me. about that very issue and that video, that Google video. And I'm not saying I look forward to seeing it, but I look forward to seeing it. I want to talk about brownfields. I'm curious to ask, and somebody here I'm sure knows, when the properties were listed on Regional Growth Partnership, when I guess when we call it the 7,000 block of Navarre, it said that there was a brownfield on that, in that proposal. Where would that be located?
We can, obviously, I don't.
I mean,
can
I
we-
was, yeah.
Can somebody look into that and get Ms. Ackerman the answer to that?
Yeah, it says that there's brownfield, yes, and it lists all the parcels, so I was just curious which.
If somebody would,
Those farmland parcels would be a brownfield. Obviously, I know you guys know a lot more about brownfields than I do. And, but gosh, I'm getting to learn, but, I know again in the Blade this weekend, you guys mentioned about the possible demise of the refineries and at the very least, a loss of revenue from a lowering of production on those sites. And several people have said to me, and I know I've heard it for years and years through the schools and through the city, we've got to put this levy out, we're going to lose revenue, the sky's falling, refineries are going to close. And I'd like to believe 100 years as far as, well, I don't know, there's a lot of issues, a lot of opinions about how long the refineries are going to last and how long they're going to be able to not just be unsightly, but be at least helping to pay the bills here. I want to ask you, have you considered, because a lot of people are saying to me, why don't you get the refineries, why don't you get the paperwork going? Why don't you get them listed? I mean, their demise is so imminent to some people. Like, why don't we pursue turning them into brownfields, having the paperwork all in order? Because I got looking on Aries, and BP alone has well over 600 acres there with infrastructure, and there are grants available, and if we had our paperwork done, and especially like Toledo Refining, I mean, they own from Pickle to Navarre to Wheeling, and they have several hundred acres there. Has there been any discussion about getting the paperwork going to turn them into brownfields so that we're not behind the 8 ball so much?
I don't know if they have done anything like that or not.
But I think
We can't do it,
they have to apply for it
of course.
because,
Can we apply for yours?
pardon?
Could we apply to?
If you were saying my death is imminent, I suppose you could probably take out an insurance policy on me.
I don't think so.
Well, no, that's what I'm asking, but I have read a lot about, how the EPA determines a brownfield, and they have community-based brownfield redevelopment strategies. So what I was gonna ask you is that, should we go down this road?
I don't think we can.
Mr.
We
Penn?
can't determine
Well-
somebody else's property.
Mr. Beasley.
Just as a note, you asked the question, I have been very active in Columbus with 2 different organizations I'm with to seek funding in the Ohio from the Ohio legislature for brownfield remediation. Long-term, that's something that's important to Oregon. So the answer is yes, we as a community have been among the leaders on that, working on it with a couple different organizations in Columbus. There are some programs out there. It is our hope that the refinery is there for another 118 years. In the meantime, I was just out with leaders from the refinery at an event that they had us come out to about, they were concerned about their potential risks and asked us to come out to talk about it again. So that's going on. So the answer is yes, we are seeking dollars to be available for that should something happen. But our primary hope is that it doesn't happen.
But we can prepare, what do they say? Prepare for the worst and hope for
Sure,
the
that's what we
best?
do. That's what we do.
Okay, but so there are things, okay. So we're not just sitting back and waiting, and Because it's just so much talk about losing the refineries that
But
it's, just thought, let's be proactive about it.
just for the council and for the community, among the challenges for us that getting dollars in to remediate an issue like that doesn't put new projects there yet. That's probably a 15, a many-year project. I mean, the last very large one I was involved in, when the First Energy or Toledo Edison unit left the east side, right at the just north of the King Bridge there, just right off of Main Street.
On Front Street.
Yeah, on Front Street there. That was about at least a $21 million project that a huge portion of those dollars were local and some were state. Those things, it was a many-year project, but I'm familiar with how to do those things, and I've already started thinking about how to do them, but I don't want them to think that they happen overnight, but it's something that we're very aware of and we'll explore opportunities on, should it be necessary. That's not something that we expect in the near term. It's something that's our hope that there are another 18 years, but we look at our options because it's what we should do.
Okay. Well, that's good for the public to know, because we just see you guys, saying, hey, let's look at Greenfield. And it's like, well, no, hey, let's keep looking at Brownfield, because of the American Jobs Act. There's a lot of funding out there for that. I know the steel plant went in, to golf because of the incentives for the brownfield versus they could have gone somewhere else. And I know they got the greater emissions and all that stuff. So I wanted to ask you about that. And yeah, so that Walleye, I guess, so the Bayshore power plant is owned by a company called Walleye?
Walleye Power.
Yeah. So is that just sitting there dead in the water?
No, Mr.
It
President.
does actually.
Yeah, that's a company that produces electricity for the grid and produces steam for the BP refinery. The fuel source they have is not coal, so that rail line that used to supply it with coal doesn't supply that anymore. There is a conveyor that you can see, you can drive under it even when you go right past it. It provides a waste product from the refinery, that pet coke or petroleum coke product, that is used as the feedstock for the power plant, and it's running about a third of its old capacity. But they operate a portion of it. They produce electricity for the grid, sell it to the grid at market rate, and they also then provide steam to the plant.
Is that what you see where the coal used to sit across the road? And
Yes,
that's
that's pet coke.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay. Just curious, because you always hear
Sure.
about it's being closed.
No,
What
it's
is it
it's
doing?
no longer a coal-fired plant. It's a pet coke plant.
Okay, great. And yeah, so that was the main thing, because it was like there's so many acres where the refineries are, and even surrounding the refineries, Edison, and there's so many acres around there that could be combined, and the infrastructure's already there in place. And then, so that leads me to ask you, I know you guys are talking about to take Eastern Oregon and to industrialize it, you would be moving electric and sewer. And do you have a timeline for any of that, as far as in that non-potable water line?
Mr. Beasley.
Mr. President and members, there's no timeline for anything now because the project we explored has moved on. There is electric power that already runs through Eastern Oregon and enters the township just right out along Navarre, just east of you, as you know. We have a large volume potable water line that runs right in front of the place, right down Navarre, all the way east. We have talked about for some projects, because for instance, for some projects, we provide a raw water, a non-potable water, and that is something that generally our engineering department has experience with running and taking a look at timelines. There's nothing that we have a timeline to do, and that's not something we would do unless there was a specific project that already wanted it. We wouldn't run a water line for something like that unless someone wanted it and there was a project.
There's a lot of discussion about making a proposed industrial area, site ready, and moving the infrastructure there so that it would attract the type of industry you guys are looking for. So
We can
that's
get the
why.
water line there in that time.
If there was, if there was ever a project And if there was, and if someone rezoned it,
Mr.
it would be
Beasley?
faster to build the water line than it would build the
Yeah,
facility.
probably the
So-
water's probably the easiest, but
Sure.
yeah, like that,
Yeah.
that electric, it says it would be,
That's
you know,
pretty
like
easy too.
2 to 5 years. I don't know, you know,
Okay.
it's just curious, everybody's wondering.
So we're listening to the administration, we are not preemptively putting the utilities there.
Okay.
Is that what I'm
Yeah, that's
hearing?
correct. Yeah, we have no plan to take any steps on any of those.
Okay, because that would be,
Sure.
would that be an eminent domain?
No,
issue?
it wouldn't, but it would be something if we use the public right of way, but it's not something, not an investment we would make unless there was a specific project that had already been approved by the community.
Okay, yeah, I guess, you answered my other question, so, and then thank you for your getting me things. But, yeah, I guess so would you consider allowing any of the public to be involved if you started a brownfield committee?
Sure.
I mean, obviously, you wouldn't, it's really kind of touchy because it's like saying to them, you know, we're planning for your demise, but yeah, it's kind of depressing, but yet so many people are saying to me, and a lot of them are former council people and they're saying, no, wait a minute, you've got to, you know, because it takes so long to apply for brownfield status, you should have all your paperwork ready so that that doesn't sit there idle and you can, you know, revamp it into some other type of industry.
So ultimately, Mr. President, that's something we're aware of. It is our hope that those folks are there for a long time. They're an important part of our community. I know they want to be there for a long time. There's factors having nothing to do with the operating of their company. They operate it well. External forces about ag content regulation and that certification, that's their biggest cost now. And line 5 that are their external threats. And that's where we're very actively involved in lobbying on their behalf and working with them. We are also very aware, and again, I took a very active role in brownfield lobbying for funding for brownfield remediation for local communities should things happen. And that's the kind of the role that we look to play on. We are very familiar with the steps necessary to seek such funds. And we have our engineering team is very good at dealing with those things. And we will be ready should something happen. I just want to make sure people know that.
I'm just
Something
I'm
that
just every
we have a good team
citizen
at that.
going, what's a brownfield? How does
Sure.
it, you know,
We
because it
understand.
sounds horrible.
Sure.
But
It's
yeah,
really in a brownfield, it's important to note, I don't want to scare. It really just means properties that's been used really for industrial
doesn't
purposes
necessarily
traditionally.
mean there's hazardous
Yeah.
material.
The Cliffs project was a
Yeah.
brownfield.
Yeah, again, the Cliffs project, which is on land owned and
That was
partially in
brownfield.
Toledo and
Which one?
partially,
The Cliffs project was.
was
Oh,
on the
yeah, right,
brownfield
that was
site.
golf.
It was the old Gulf
Where my
refinery.
grandfather worked. Okay, all right, I'll leave just after this. Do you guys, and I don't know who to address this to, do you edit any of these videos, any meetings? Are they ever edited? I mean, I know it's live right now.
I've never seen a video of any meeting here, but
Oh, okay.
nobody's edited one.
And
I don't think we're that
No,
savvy.
no one would edit
Miss-
it?
We're new to it.
we have no
but-
capability.
He knows why I'm asking. Just- Oh, well, because when you did your economic development meeting and I asked Ms. Frazell if she was licensed and there was quite a pause in her response. But when you watch it afterward, it's very immediate. It's very clear that someone has edited that video.
Absolutely nobody ever admitted
Yeah.
that. You can
It's live.
see what you want. It's live.
I know, but how in the world? I mean, you.
Well, you're standing up there.
You,
must
you
have done
felt
more
it took
time
longer,
than I
you're
did.
saying, for her to.
Mm, No, there were several people that said, well, wait a minute, she sat there
I-
and was very,
Miss Ackerman,
took her quite a
Miss-
while, and then she
I don't-
looked
I
over
don't
here and
know.
said,
Miss Evans takes care of our video and
I haven't
I,
even looked at that meeting yet. There's no editing going on. It's live.
okay,
That's the whole idea with live.
all right, well,
Sometimes you might need a little stall or something from what, maybe from what.
but if you have a button for like on radio where someone goes on a tear and starts cursing and you say like, oh,
We-
okay,
We don't have.
she
that
controls it right here and she never touched that.
okay. I don't know who would do that.
Would
then.
that be buffering?
No one did.
Buffering?
No.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do, and several people have pointed out
You just
that
must
there's
be mistaken.
definitely, it went from a pregnant pause to a very
I
clear.
don't recall
No.
her pausing.
Hmm?
I don't
No?
recall her pausing.
No.
I don't.
No,
My memory's quite good too.
Miss Ackerman,
Okay.
I trust Miss Evans with our stuff and she's the only one that handles it.
Right. Mr. Horniak, did you think that there was, you had conducted the meeting. Did she respond to me immediately?
The video, I don't recall the length of the pause as far as the record between the two, but I can tell you, I don't believe there's any editing video.
Okay, I'm just asking because a lot of people are saying, hey, at this, this is what I saw live and this is what you can go back when it's archived and watch and things vary. So I'm just asking for the sake of record.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I
Ms.
don't-
Ackerman.
Okay.
You mentioned, I don't have a recollection of the difference, nor do I have a reference.
Quite frankly, I thought she responded very fast.
Okay. If you say so. I mean, no, I
That's what I
know. I
recall.
thought to myself, the answer was no, I don't have a license. So I thought good enough, but people were asking, well, wait, there was quite a hesitation and I know,
I
what's
don't
the
recall
difference is she
hesitation
said
at
no,
all.
right?
I don't recall hesitation. In fact, I thought she responded real fast.
I know. And if I produce it, someone's recording, it would say, you just say, well, we doctored it or someone doctored it, but
I don't know
we
why
just
you-
need to
I don't
know.
know why someone would want to doctor that anyway.
I don't know,
I don't know.
maybe it was like the people that heckled me from behind me the entire economic development meeting. I don't know, could be them. Was very,
No one else has access to the stuff.
okay, I'm just asking. So when the way we see it right now, that's the way it is.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Way it
All right,
is.
well, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerman. Steve? State your name and address for the record, please.
Steve Solander, address 2435 Eastvale Avenue, Oregon, Ohio. Thank you. And I just wanted to speak a brief bit here on about the 911 dispatchers again. I'm coming here today not to attack anybody. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm not coming at anybody, but just with some information that I have obtained I'm not the only one, of course, but feelings of some of the dispatchers that are actually involved in living this life right now across all of Lucas County. I just think it's important for you to have information. I'm sure you get it from the administrative side, and I think it's important to hear from the people that are on the inside of it. Because unfortunately, a lot of them don't feel comfortable about coming forward with it because of concerns about, retaliation and effects on them. So,
Excuse me,
unfortunately-
Steve. Tell them that they can contact me. I have people.
I'm not
I-
just talking about Oregon.
I have
So,
people
but
from
yeah.
the other departments that
Okay.
if they can have a conversation with me, it's a B conversation. I don't talk about what they say to other people.
Okay.
So if people have a problem, they can talk to me. It's not going to get spread to other people or to the administration.
Okay.
They can have confidence talking to me if they want to.
Okay, I appreciate
you.
having that contact, and I'll definitely share that with them. That being said, right now, and some of it was in the news too, but it was kind of brushed over or what have you. But they're tired, they're unappreciated, and feeling overworked. They're working 12 to 16-hour days with mandatory overtime almost every day. From emails that were obtained through public information, that Matt Harriman has been reaching out to some of the different suburbs, Oregon and Maumee and Savannah Township, I know for a fact are some of them. Just asking for help from the suburbs for dispatchers who are interested and willing to work overtime to help them out as well, which we have our own issues with that. So they haven't had any responses from that, to my knowledge. But through, from Lucas County and Toledo and from Matt Harriman himself, they have stated that they are significantly understaffed. And basically just want to say, keep in mind, this is all happening and this is all occurring now, before consolidation, before all of our calls from the rest of the county are being directed to that same communication center. So even by bringing in our dispatchers into there, if they're lucky, they'll be fully staffed. Because as we know, not all of our suburb dispatchers will be going to downtown, for various reasons, for their, personal reasons, as well as finding other positions and so forth. So, but not everybody is going to be heading down there. So this, as I had said a couple weeks ago, it's a huge safety issue and it's a huge safety concern for everybody, for the citizens, for our responders, for everybody, and the dispatchers themselves. And I understand that we're not going to stop consolidation. I understand that it's coming and we're not going to be able to stop it. But it's just important for the safety of all of us, for the citizens, as well as yourselves, to be informed and just do all we can to minimize that risk. And I appreciate Chief Biggin also for being proactive and what you would answer back a few weeks ago also and your involvement in that. So thank you for that. It's good to hear, and it's refreshing and very much appreciated. So thank you. That being said, I just want to, on the record also, I want to thank the dispatchers who have been with us here in Oregon for a long, long time, as well as across all of Lucas County, including Toledo and Lucas County dispatchers and all of our responders as well. So thank you to the police, fire, and the dispatchers. They're more than just a number on a budget sheet. These are families, these are people, and our decisions that we do affect their lives and affect them as well as all the citizens. And, and they are the ones that, when we have that worst day, that they're going to be the ones that are going to be answering that call and coming to us and helping us out. They're going to be running to the issues. So we just have to regardless of our own issues that we may have as a city or as administration with our dispatchers and so forth, I just feel it's important that we need to make sure they know how much we appreciate them, and we need to do all we can to protect those that protect us. So there's my information on that. Now, I do have also just 2 additional questions, kind of unrelated to that for the most part, that I was approached by a few people that they were unable to be here, but they were going to be watching the live. So they asked if I would ask them for them. So number 1 is on our cable bills. It doesn't matter from what I can tell from AT&T or Buckeye Cable or any of those. There is something on the bill called a franchise fee. The question is they were wondering if we receive any portion of that franchise fee. From what I could tell online, it looked like it went to the state and it was just burst out. And if so, what does that go in the city of Oregon? Mr. Beasley?
Mr. President, my recollection is a small portion of that does come into our bucket. I have not, it's not much. We don't have years ago, we used to have almost like an exclusive. Now any cable company that wants to come into Oregon can come in here.
Oh, okay.
And serve anyone. It's just that one company spent a lot of money on fiber, and it's hard to get somebody else to want to do that, take that risk. Ours goes into right-of-way maintenance and things like that with it, but I will take a look at the revenue on it.
I just,
They stopped paying that?
yeah, I thought it for new companies coming into the area, you can no longer require a franchise fee.
I'll check and see where that is.
Not for new ones, but just for existing?
Correct. That's what I thought.
I'll check on that revenue. I'm
Coming in
curious.
because that was a big debate. And that, I mean, it's been almost 15, 20
Yeah,
years.
there's not much in that bucket, but I'll check and see.
I figured it wasn't, going to
Yeah,
replace.
it goes to the state. It goes to the state and
Okay.
take it from there.
Okay, thank you.
As the summer home for the mayor. And
That's what I
and
thought,
administrator.
perhaps maybe Lake Home or something like that.
Couple of them.
Couple of them, I know. I'm expecting an invite then. Anyhow, second question was, and this one here, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if this was discussed here or not. I kind of feel like there was at least something said about it, but I just didn't recall exactly what the answer was. So I apologize if it's a repeat, but regarding the new fire station, once that is in place and up and running, what are the plans for the other existing fire stations? If they were going to be shut down and we were just going to be running on one, or what's the objective or plan?
Mr. Beasley. Mr. President. Mr. President and members, the plan is to keep those other stations for auxiliary, depending on circumstances. It really is just to take some time to see how things work with the new station, what the service looks like, how that coverage looks like. Those stations will be kept. We won't keep the station here. This will replace station number 1, obviously. stations 2 and 3, the plan is to keep them and to try and get an assessment of what our long-term need is going to be. Might be over some period of time, the community depends on growth and change, that we need a second station. Those are all, a second full station. Those are things we'll look at. Community's got to assess it over time, but there's no plan to close the other stations.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Those are the couple questions, so I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. We have no other people signed up today. Sure. State your name and address for the record, please.
PJ Caphammer, 3646 Navarre Avenue. I've sat through this process. I've watched every meeting. I've been to every meeting. It's probably gone on for about 3 months. I'm going to say you guys have handled yourself well. I know what it's like to sit in that chair. I know what it's like to have the room come in, and no matter what you do, you're not going to win. I actually remember sitting at the school board meeting one time, and Mr. Flanagan was supportive of us adding programs for kids in the junior high. And the guy in front of him was yelling at us because we're spending every tax dollar. And the room went back and forth a couple times, and I'm like, this is what we do. We're not going to make everybody happy. We have to serve the system, and the system comes first over our own personal needs. It's a very tough thing. A lot of people can sit in the cheap seats. They can pick you apart. It takes a lot to want to make a change, to actually run for that seat, to put your name out there so that people can attack you based on your opinions differing from theirs. But we sign up for that. It sucks. But I admire you guys for sitting here and dealing with this. I've watched this process, and you're better people than me. When I was on the board, we did a lot of things, and I always thought, I can live with it if I put the kids who were the system to me first, not the adults. I always put the kids first, even over my own kids. To me, enough's enough. I don't mind if you have a difference of opinion. I don't mind if you don't like somebody because they didn't do what you want them to do. I can't stand the lies. If you wanted to attack me based on my actions and they were truthful, I was okay with it. I could live with that. But if you attack me based on lies and you try to dirty me up on lies, I never stood for that. So I've respected everybody in this room. I've watched this process for 3 months. I think every answer's been answered, even if people don't agree with the answers they got. There's been about 32 smoking guns we've tried to find. Now it's the editing of a videotape. Every smoking gun has been answered. I sat quietly till this weekend. It's comical that Steve Salender's here not to attack, but all he's done is attack for 3 months. All that he's done is spread hypotheticals, and we're getting the new prison out there, and you know they bought up the sweet feed, and it's nonstop. I mean, your picture on your Facebook is a Mr. Beasley and Mr. Safarian with a line through their face, but you're not here to attack. But you're not here to attack. So I just have to say that this weekend, while I've never interrupted you, and you will not interrupt me. You've all questioned people, you've called people out here, you've done that, and everybody sits back and it's your time to speak. You want to question me, I'll be out there and this is their time right here. So I know I'm not. I'm not going to go back and forth with them. It's a simple thing. This is what was put on the internet this week. To every site in Oregon, to everything. Neighbors and friends, it has been brought to our attention that the City of Oregon and the Oregon Economic Development Foundation are under contract with some of the property owners, aka 7100 Navarre Avenue area, for land holding. This has been covered for 3 months. They've asked it a dozen times, and every time you've answered that question. But now all of a sudden they've figured out you've done it. You sneaked it. What do we believe this means? Based upon the information the city has disclosed thus far, each acre was given a value of $30,000. This amount is the amount OEDF had all the property listed for sale on theirs in the Regional Growth Partnership site. From what our city leaders said in a council meeting, the city OEDF Bank would give each landowner an amount of $15,000 to hold their property up to 2 years for consideration of developing an industrial zone. If in that 2-year period, the property doesn't sell, the landowners get to keep the money. If it does sell, they would get the balance of another $15K per acre. First of all, I've sat in these meetings. They were offered $20,000, and you guys had said we anticipate another $10,000 to develop this, but the landowners were offered $20,000 per acre. But apparently, they want to do some easy math here. If you have 300 acres under contract, they have not they're going to, they have spent $4.5 million of our tax dollars. Now, this has been covered and questioned, multiple public information requests, but all of a sudden, it's come to the attention that you guys just spent $4.5 million, which is physically impossible to do without voting on it. So you guys spent $4.5 million on the possibility that a company or companies would be interested in that property within 2 years. Keep in mind, they also said it would take up to 4 years to pull the water or electricity. Again, their timeline listed in the specifications of the RGP website. What we want to know is, where are all the communication between our city council representatives regarding this deal? You've been talking about it for 3 months. It's 3 months it's been going on. In all the information we have received from the Freedom of Information Act, nothing about their involvement or knowledge has been included because it hasn't happened. What is included are a few emails that led us to believe that our city representatives are using their personal emails, which we all know isn't excluded from Information Act, the Sunshine Act. Your personal information, if they're asking about it, you have to give it. And they're required by law to release those as well. We need to pack city chambers this Monday, August 9th at 7 p.m. We need to know. What is the amount of money that was directed from our city officials to OEDF? But they just found out, I mean, they want to know, but apparently they found out that you did it. Were any of our tax dollars used to secure these lands holding contract? This will include, I mean, it just goes on. Was this a blank check or $4.5 million check? It's been answered, but when you put this out there, mistruths and lies. I've watched this room. Some of you are thieves, drunks, liars, bullies, cheats. You know how hard it is to sit up there and take that and just swallow it? You worried about their families, the first responders? You don't think they got kids? You don't think they got families? While you're posting this trash on them? You don't think people care about them too?
PJ,
You don't
I
think that?
appreciate you, what you're saying.
I'm telling
but
you right now.
I don't want this to get into an argument on the
I
floor
do.
of council.
I'll be out there. Enough. Enough of this. You've answered every question. You have bent over backwards to do the right thing. I get it. You can agree to disagree. But to personally attack, to lie, to make you look bad, I've sat in that chair. It's horrible when people do that to you. I'll defend it. I don't even agree. I'm not even for this project or against it. But to use lies, fear-mongering to hurt you, when do you draw the line?
Again, thank you very much. And
For the record, Melissa, I am not threatening to kick anyone's ass. I don't need another protection order. Honest to God, I've been through so many of them. Right, yeah, I got tons of them. I'll go outside. I'm not threatening anyone in any means. Thank you for this minute. You're doing as best you can. You serve 20,000 voters or 20,000 people in the city. You serve 20,000. You're not going to get it right every time. The only thing you can hope to do is do what you believe in your heart is best for the system. And that's good enough for me. Thank you.
thank you. At this point in time, I'll seek a motion to adjourn. Ms. Sacrament, please.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
One thing.
I
one
seek a
thing.
motion to adjourn the
No,
meeting.
sir,
Shut
please,
it down.
one thing, because he.
So moved, Mr.
one-
President.
One
Shut it
thing,
down.
Thank
please.
you,
If
Mr.
you're gonna
Reeves.
deny me that after that tirade, he didn't even sign up. Yeah.
Meeting
I
is,
was
meeting is
accused-
officially adjourned.
Okay,
But you can
read about
continue,
it.
you can
read about
continue
it,
talking.
watch
You
the-
can continue
watch-
talking.
Okay. for
but the
anybody
meeting
who
is
cares
adjourned.
To listen, the questions we're asking are based on the emails that were given to us from the Freedom of Information Act saying that there were a minimum of 5 properties, 5 owners under contract, under option. I have spoken to an attorney who said he's representing one of the people at 22.5 an acre. So I really respect that he wants to defend his friend, but it really just, he's a goon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not that I have anything to say to the citizen, I'm not, I don't.
I understand.